Welcome back to the movie recap. Today's movie will be a 2008 Norwegian biographical war film titled Max Manus, Man of War. So sit back, relax and enjoy the video. The movie begins with fighting throughout World War II. A man of war emerged victorious for fighting for his country. However, as the harsh truth dawns on him, the realization hits him harder than any bullet in this world. In this movie, we will follow the story of Max Manus, a man who wants nothing but freedom. During the Winter War in March of 1940, a volunteer soldier named Max Manus fought with the Soviets. 3 months later, in Oslo, Norway, currently occupied by the Germans, we see Max with his friend, Kolbein Loring. Max introduces Kolbein to Gunnar Sundsteby. Together, they go to a rooftop where they meet two more men their age, Edvard Tollaksen and Gregers Graham. Knowing that they cannot fight the enemies head-on, the 5 young men resort to spreading propaganda against the Nazis. They will work behind the scenes until a war breaks out, and then they will join the fight to free their country. Setting up a place for them, the 5 men begin working. But because they were careless and amateurs, they didn't notice that they were already on the radar of the Gestapo. Gestapo is the official secret police of the Nazis. After a few days, Gregers leaves to go where the resistance is being organized. The 4 young men are left to continue their battle in Norway. Everything is more organized as time passes by a year into the war. One night, Max, Kolbein, Gunnar, and Edvard meet with Jens Christian Hauge, a man who had contact with London. Jens points out that although they are many in numbers, most still need training. However, Max is confident with their capabilities. Jens warns them that the Gestapo might get to them because of their carelessness. In January of 1941, Max finds the Gestapo waiting for him at home. Led by the local Gestapo chief Siegfried Famer, Max is arrested. Max tries to escape by jumping out of the window, but he lands very badly. He then dreams of the time he spent fighting in the Winter War. Max wakes up in a hospital. He immediately asks the nurse how many guards are guarding his room. Luckily, the nurse is on his side and reveals to him that there are 5 guards outside. With the help of a nurse and a doctor, Max smuggles out a message to his friends and Jens. They send Max a nipper to free himself, but he's being guarded closely. Fortunately, the nurse arrives and saves Max before the guard sees the nipper. Before he leaves, the nurse asks Max to hit her so the Gestapo won't suspect her. However, Chief Famer is smart enough to know that the nurse and the doctor are Max's accomplices. Meanwhile, Max manages to escape to Scotland. In the Forest Lodge Army training camp, Max meets with Captain Martin Linge. Max wants to serve Norway as an official part of the Norwegian Independent Company. After welcoming Max, Captain Linge orders Max to sign up with Corporal Graham. Surprised, Max immediately goes to see his friend. Gregers is now a corporal and an instructor who leads other soldiers to uplift people's spirits using words. The 2 friends catch up and train with each other. Afterward, we see them talk about their mission, where Gregers was denied to go. Max goes to Colonel John Wilson to appeal. The colonel explains that Gregers was dismissed to go because they needed him for the expansion of the military school as a teacher. The colonel also reveals that Captain Linge was killed in a mission, so there will be no one to back them up. This revelation silenced Max. After a drink, Colonel Wilson asks Max why he wants to be a saboteur. Max, full of heart and passion, Max answers that he wants his stolen country back. As Max promises to look after Gregers, the colonel finally agrees to send them both for the mission. Then, the Norwegian Independent Company are sent back to Norway to begin their sabotage mission. Their mission is to put explosives on enemy ships. At Oslo port, Max and his team proceed with their mission called Operation Mardonius. Sneaking past the patrolling boats, they manage to go near the ships undetected. Then, they begin planting the magnetic bombs on the side of the ships. The next day, the bombs they planted exploded, destroying the enemy ships. The Gestapo recovers the letter that Max and his team left. Chief Famer orders the detention of 5 port workers for them to spill what they know about the attack. Meanwhile, Max and Gregers reach Sweden as their 2 other comrades are left in Norway. In Stockholm, Max and Gregers go to the British consulate. As Gregers finds a person named Tikken, Max approaches a woman and rudely asks for his needed equipment. However, the woman is not intimidated by Max and tells him to wait like other people in the consulate. It turns out that the woman is the person named Tikken that Gregers is talking about. Tikken, or Ida Nicolene Lindebrekke, is a Norwegian contact working at the British consulate. Back at the training camp in Scotland, the Norwegian Independent Company receives medals of honor from the Norwegian king after their successful mission. Meanwhile, back in the Gestapo office, the mother of Sigurd Jacobsen, one of the arrested port workers, appeals to Chief Famer about his son. Chief Famer assures the mother that he will investigate the matter. However, he didn't pull out the order to execute the arrested port workers. Max and Gregers are now back in Norway. Max is stressed about what happened to Sigurd, but Gregers tells him not to blame himself. However, Max cannot hide his frustration and anger about his friend's death. Later that night, Max is surprised when Kolbein shows up at their old base. It turns out that Kolbein was captured as a prisoner of war for 3 years. Afterward, Max and Gregers meet with Gunnar to take the police Jelland and the labor service registry. Gregers and Gunnar go inside while Max is waiting outside. After the two set off an explosion, they all quickly get away. Later that night, the resistance raids a house to look for an archive. Then, they begin burning all the archives they found. Morning comes, and there are still some documents left. Hearing a gunshot outside, they quickly burn all the remaining files and escape. They scatter around, and Max witnesses how his comrade was shot dead. The police then purposely ran over the man's body. Max steals a bike from a man to escape and gets wounded on the run. However, a lone police officer spots him. He attempts to arrest Max, but one of his comrades tries to help him. Unfortunately, his comrade was shot dead during the exchange of bullets. Meanwhile, at the Gestapo office, it is revealed that they captured one of Max's comrade and is torturing the man to get information out of him. Returning, Max wakes up only to find that they're labeled terrorists in the German newspapers. However, Gregers is already releasing their side of the story. So Max is worried that something might happen to Gregers too. But Gregers just laughs it off and tells his friend that he should put up a statue of him when he dies. The two then go back to Stockholm and meet with Tikken. Max looks at Tikken flirtatiously, and he's surprised to know that she already has a son. After some time, Gregers passes out, and the two are left talking. Max opens himself to Tikken, and she finds it amusing that a tough guy like Max can be sentimental too. Tikken also reveals that although she's still married to her husband, they're not on good terms. Max and Tikken start to develop a relationship, but Tikken pulls herself away from Max when they're about to kiss. The scene changes to Oslo, where Max and his team are set on another mission. Gunnar warns Max that he needs to be extra careful. But as usual, Max is still confident that they'll pull through this mission. Not long after, Max accidentally shoots himself in the leg. Fortunately, one of his comrades' father is a doctor. However, the doctor cannot remove all the bullet pieces in Max's body. So he advised Max to go to Sweden, where he's not wanted, so he could go to a hospital for proper medication. Max doesn't want to leave despite the doctor's advice because of the mission. But Gregers promises that he'll take care of everything. As a remembrance, Gregers gives Max a picture of SS Donau, their target ship. On a train, Max dreams of the Winter War. He remembers how he chased and murdered a retreating enemy soldier. Looking back, all he saw were all the dead bodies of his enemies and comrades. The scene jumps to November of 1944. Gregers and Edvard go to a coffee shop to meet with a man who will relay information about the Gestapo. But Gregers quickly notices that everything is a setup. A shootout takes place between Gregers and Edvard against the Gestapo. Unfortunately, Gregers dies in the encounter while Edvard is wounded and arrested. Tikken visits Max in the hospital and reveals what happened to Gregers and Edvard. Max blames himself, saying that he shouldn't have left. However, he immediately picks up his things and returns to Norway despite Tikken's warning. Then, we see Edvard tied to a pipe, with his wound poorly treated. Edvard begs for his life, telling Chief Famer that he's just a messenger. But as we know, Chief Famer has no mercy and orders the torture of Edvard until he spills everything he knows. Afterward, Edvard kills himself in his cell. Christmas Eve of the year 1944, the Gestapo have a grand celebration while the resistance is busy preparing for their mission. Roy, one of the members of the opposition, shares with the group that the Germans have broken through Ardennes. Knowing how dangerous it is, Max decides to continue the mission, but alone. Kolbein tries to talk some sense out of Max. Their argument heated up and became emotional as they were still devastated by Gregers and Edvard's death. Kolbein then insists that Max will not do the mission alone. In January 1945, Max, Kolbein, and Roy posed as electricians to enter the port. They see a guard firing his gun into the waters as a new routine to avoid another sabotage. Then, Max and Roy make their way to the side of the ship while Kolbein guards the door. Max carefully places the bombs that have their fallen comrades' names on them. They're about to leave after they finish placing the bombs when they nearly get shot by a guard who's doing the firing routine. The three quickly get out of the port, but Kolbein bumps into Chief Famer. Luckily, Kolbein manages to evade the chief's suspicion. The next day, Chief Famer arrives at the scene of the destroyed and sunken SS Donau. The chief also receives intel about the sabotaged railways. He cannot believe that the resistance managed to accomplish everything in just one day. Angry, Chief Famer orders the arrest of all suspects and their execution to show the people the strength and might of the Germans. Meanwhile, Max finds Tikkun leaving with her son and husband. Max begs her to stay, but he can't do anything as he watches her leave. Then, we see the Gestapo's persecution of the members of the resistance. They don't bother to arrest them and go straight, killing them. Gunnar manages to go to their old base and warns Max about the persecution. Gunnar tells him that they need to escape to Sweden, but Max is determined to fight. He sneaks into one of his comrades' apartments but finds him dead. Max can't do anything but cry in silence and agony. The scene changes to Tikkun listening to a radio report that Hitler is already dead. On May 8 of 1945, we see the people of Norway celebrating on the streets as Max walks freely. Max then visits Famer, who's now imprisoned. Surprisingly, despite all the bad things that happened to Max and all his friends because of Famer, he talks to him calmly. Realizing that everyone is just a victim of the war, following the ideologies they thought were right, Max manages to let go of his hatred towards Famer. In the end, the two soldiers shake hands. Outside, Max comes across Kolbein, and his friends remind him that he should celebrate because the war has ended. Max sees his fallen comrades celebrating in his apartment as the war finally ends. As they all raise a toast for Max, he realizes that he's actually alone. Afterward, Tikkun goes into his apartment and finds him miserable. Max lies that he's just celebrating alone. Tikkun listens to Max as he lets himself be vulnerable to her. Max points out that nothing is more pathetic than a soldier without a war. He wishes to die alongside his friend. Tikkun consoles him, and Max weeps. In the end, Tikkun convinces Max to leave his apartment. In June 1945, Max joined the victory parade with Kolbein and Gunnar. The movie ends with Max smiling after accepting everything that's happened. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this to help the channel out. Have a nice day.